We are now in the Communications and Extension Program Update column, and we'll get going here in a minute. We have Marley Beem, Oklahoma State University. Oh, there he is. Okay, good, good. Social media technology and pond management. How many folks here are involved with pond management, pond and lake management in their day-to-day responsibilities? So a number.
All right.
Give me a minute to screw this up and I'll. No, you're right. Right there. We'll get
Just use these buttons here.
Yeah.
Here's a pointer.
Yep, yep. Good to go.
All right.
All right.
This is a two-part presentation that, as you've just heard, focuses on pond management extension. Oklahoma is perhaps paradise for ponds, at least if you look at the numbers. We have, depending on how you measure it, more than 350,000 ponds in the state. That's a lot of ponds. I think that's more than most of you have in your states, and it's even more than Texas has on a per acre basis. So ponds are quite big. Let's see. Oh, the arrows. Okay, very good. First, a question. When it comes to pond management extension, who are we? I think, first of all, we are biologists, and this is a limitation. The problems in ponds extend beyond biology. We'll get to that in a bit. Secondly, we are problem solvers. We may see ourselves as teachers, educators, but I think in a real sense, we respond to the problems of pond owners, and not so much in a teaching mode, although we talk about teachable moments. If we are primarily responding to people's problems that they experience with ponds, we are not using our time very efficiently. I think we realize this, and we know that we would be much better off if we had a way to somehow influence the entire body of pond owners to become managers of their resource instead of just passive users of that resource. Social media is here, and I think most of us are using it. All of us are aware of it. It is a powerful presence. I would say that I am somewhere on the steep part of the learning curve. I certainly have not mastered this, but I'm engaged with it, and I'm convinced that this will lead us to the promised land, so to speak, for the following reasons we'll get to here. But when you first look at social media in something like pond management extension, it's somewhat disillusioning because of the kinds of things that people respond to or will post online about their ponds. We're primarily looking at narcissistic pursuits. I try to publish something factual and clear and appealing about how to manage some aspect of the ponds, almost no response. Picture of a beautiful largemouth bass, lots and lots of responses. So what do we do with this? We can look at it from different angles. I think we just have to realize that this is the way it is. If you want to call it coloring book education, you can call it that. But we need to shape what the messages that we put out, and some people talk about something called the snackification of communication. Small bits of information covered with aesthetics and recreational appeal, with a stealth agenda here in mind, and that is working on the pond owning public, those who would never darken the doors of an extension office or would never call you perhaps, into considering at least the idea that maybe it would be worthwhile doing something to manage their pond instead of just responding to emergencies. And it all comes back to this thing that we all learned at some point and all agreed conceptually that this is the most powerful way to educate a group of people through this innovation diffusion process. Finally, I think we are able to get a tool that will allow us to reach the early adopters here. If we can convince a few people in that category to begin managing their ponds actively, we will have achieved a great deal. Switching gears here to the second half of my 15 minutes of fame. Technology, what is happening in technology now and what is potentially going to happen very soon with developing technologies that will influence fishing and pond management extension in particular. You don't have to look very hard to find things on the internet that are being touted as the greatest thing ever. I'm a bit of a skeptic when it comes to these things. Some of you may have direct experience with some of these products that I'm going to disrespect here. I think they're kind of gimmicky. The idea of putting a fish finder sonar into your bobber and having it appear on your cell phone, maybe it's great. It's certainly a novelty. I don't know if it's really worthwhile or not. Underwater drones. Everybody's aware of aerial drones, but underwater drones that purport to be able to catch fish for you using cameras. I don't know. I've never heard of anybody who's bought one of these things. Again, I think it's a gimmick, but I'm a fan of technology. I'm convinced that these may be purely gimmicks, but something is coming along that will work and may even exceed the claims of what is being marketed at present. Here's a product that's being marketed in advance before it's actually available, I think out of France, targeting recreational scuba divers. You get to indulge in your selfie video of yourself scuba diving. This camera platform follows your wristwatch. It's part of the system and videotapes your wonderful scuba diving experience. It's pretty cool. I think we need to broaden our perspective, however, and look at what's happening in the world of research. The way that my world opened up was when my oldest daughter went to graduate school in mechanical engineering. She worked under a professor whose objective is producing autonomous underwater vehicles. If you're trying to guide an underwater drone by hand, by camera, it doesn't work. It's too dark and there's too many things to bump into. But if you can come up with a device that guides itself with onboard intelligence, you have something. In order for that to work, though, you have to have a new generation of sensors. If you look at harbor seals, they have an amazing ability to capture fish in total darkness. They do it using whiskers. The whiskers are not conventional. They have an undulating surface. And this is my daughter working on a sensor here that is basically, that black part is a scaled up version of a whisker. It worked, and research is proceeding along that line in other people's hands. I think that UAVs are coming. The oil companies are interested in this for underwater oil drilling platforms. The military is interested in everything. There is money, there is brain power being directed towards this. What are we going to do with UAVs in pond management extension? My vision is we're going to use them to cull the herd. Overpopulated bluegill, send your killer seeker drones out to reduce it. People who are working on sterile crappie production, more power to you, but maybe your efforts are not going to be accomplishing anything because our UAVs will take care of that problem. So there are biological problems that really need engineering solutions. The one that set me back while I was preparing this presentation that surprised me was an article in the IEEE publication, the Electrical Engineers publication, How to Manage Fish Lice in Salmonid Culture in Cages. Someone has developed a prototype of a device that is lowered into the center of the cage, uses optical recognition systems to identify and precisely locate an individual louse and eliminates it with a laser. It's not science fiction, it's not popular mechanics. It's happening, or it will happen, or something better than it will happen soon. Those who are into looking at future technologies are most excited about something called augmented reality. This is not virtual reality gaming. This is injecting computer power into a real-world, real-time activity. What will it look like? A pair of glasses that you wear initially. Wearing these glasses, you can, whatever you're doing, these will be generic products. You can program them to do whatever you want, collect whatever information you want, provide whatever information you want. I think in the area of recreational fishing and pond management, collecting data on the catch is going to be the obvious solution, or obvious solution to a problem that we thought was impossible. Optical systems will be able to identify the species of fish, measure the length, and the condition of the fish. The things that we have been trying forever to get the public to do that we've given up on, that's just impossible. And then once you build up a big enough database to plug it into the algorithm of your choice, whatever your management objectives are, and then it will come up with a recommendation for you on your heads-up display. Keep this fish or put him back. Along this line, I think vegetation management is also a big need and amenable to this sort of approach. Identify the plants automatically and monitor the extent of coverage by emergent vegetation and floating vegetation automatically. Probably the drones can be programmed to do the underwater vegetation monitoring, and you will begin to get recommendations, warnings if you will, that perhaps a problem is developing well ahead of time, at the right time, to take the right actions. So very briefly, I've presented you with two things that I believe are real game changers when it comes to pond management extension. I think social media allows us to become marketers, which is what we should be doing, at least to a much greater extent. We need to learn how to make things attractive rather than trying to solve problems. And the technologies, again, that I've presented here as possibilities are not at all impossible. I think they will happen. We need to get on board with the possibilities and try to shape them instead of being blindsided.